Thanks everyone for joining us. It is the June meeting of the Astrobiology Science Communication Guild. Today is June 6th, and we are joined by Dani Leach, who is our speaker today. She'll be talking about the Astrobiology Learning Progressions resource. We are also joined by lots of members from the team of developers from both Blue Marble and the NASA Astrobiology program. So you all can jump in. I'm happy for you to jump in as needed. There's going to be some time for anecdotes and stories and feedback. Does anyone want to, do we want to do intros from all of the folks from the development team who are here? I think it would be great to give an overview of everyone before we jump into Dani's hour-long introductory presentation. Let me back up and just say that today's meeting is just going to be an introduction to the Astrobiology Learning Progressions. And then on July 23rd, part 2 of this workshop is going to be a more interactive, and it's going to be a 2-hour session on examples and usage and feedback. I would like to ask everyone to just mute yourselves, please, if you are not speaking, just to reduce the background noise before we get started. And with that, I will first hand it over to Dani to introduce herself and a little bit about herself. And then if anyone else on the development team wants to jump in, there are a few of you here. Please feel free to do so. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Seth. So thank you so much for letting me be here today and giving this presentation. And so I am a teacher for now over 25 years in the K-12 public school system. I've taught anywhere now from 6th grade to 12th grade and science and math, and also started an astrobiology course that was at our high school. So it has been a really interesting journey along the way. Also, I have been now a part of Blue Marble and the Astrobiology Guild. So this is just kind of a great connection of all the different things that are happening in the years that I've been working as a teacher, and I'm really, really pleased to be here. Maybe Hillary, you want to jump in next?
Hi, everyone. I worked with the team because I'm a former curriculum director and was just really thrilled to see that astrobiology was going to be defined. And the team did a great job of looking at the Decadal, looking at the Primer, working with a lot of scientists and science educators to really provide a framework of learning progressions for both communicators and educators. And I think you'll see that in Dani's presentation. And if you haven't been to the site, if you just Google Astrobiology Learning Progressions, you can play around with it. And there'll be a link in the presentation. But Dani was pivotal because she had taught it so long at the high school level, which is rare in our country. We wanted to be less rare. So we thought by creating these learning progressions, that would be with different levels, and more people would be more interested and feel more successful. So happy to be here.
Graham, how about you next, if you feel?
Sure. I think, Michelle, I can probably jump in here at the same time then. So hi, I'm Graham Lau. I think I know almost everyone here. If I haven't met you, I want to meet you and talk about all things life in the universe and more. I also get to host the NASA Astrobiology Show, Ask an Astrobiologist, which is awesome. I was involved in the learning progressions in helping to moderate the content to kind of bring things up to date with where the astrobiology, the science side of things are at. Based on some of the more modern research going on, but trying to use language that was available to each of the various levels. And Dani, I'm sure we'll talk about that then and kind of our direction for doing that. But having done a lot of formal and informal education in astrobiology, as well as doing a lot of research in astrobiology, it seemed helpful for me to go in and kind of work on the language that we would use for these different levels in the learning progressions. And then Michelle, maybe you can speak.
Hi, everyone. Is my mic working good? Perfect. Okay, so I'm Michelle Hooks. I'm an education project manager in NASA's Office of STEM Engagement, and also had the joy of helping to support development of these learning progressions, which I use frequently. We currently have so what I do at work, I help astronauts connect their research with K-12 students. on ground and in space. And so we look at what they're doing and how does this apply to what students are learning. And so we actually right now have an astronaut that's headed to space. I think she's crew 9 that has a strong background in astrobiology, and everyone's scrambling like, how does this fit with the curriculum? And I'm like, aha, we have a tool for that. And so we are actively using the Astrobiology Learning Progressions right now to connect her research with K-12 students. So yeah, excited to be here and listen in.
Great. Thank you so much. And, as the presentation goes on, anyone from the team would like to jump in with either a question or an answer from the chat, or just to jump in any way, be glad to accommodate that. We can bounce back and forth. We definitely will have some time to have you all share some of the work that you've done by using the learning progressions. So
can I just jump in real quick? Yeah. Sorry, Dani. And just 2 more team members, just to give a shout out to Aaron Gronstal, who is the Astrobiology program graphic artist. And he's the one who did all the backgrounds and the graphics that you'll see throughout the presentation and in the resource itself. And Anthony Chen, who's here with us today, who's done some of the website development of the resource. So.
And of course, Daniela Scalise was
Daniela Scalise.
Yeah, she was the lead for developing it was her vision based on working with, 15, 20 different funded projects in astrobiology and seeing the need. So it was her vision.
Yes. Okay, back to you, Dani.
That's great. No, it's totally fine. Wonderful. So let me bring my presentation up. Great. Okay. So what the purpose of the learning progressions is to help you find that ideal zone to be able to communicate your content to our learners in a way that they can access. And so this is why I put a little habitability picture up there, because we're looking for that zone that's just right for our students or other learners. So
Dani, I'm not seeing your screen. Is anybody else seeing her screen?
Oh, my bad. Thank you. I'm so glad you've mentioned that you can't see what I'm talking about.
I know you're talking about that first slide, so thank you. And now you want to do that other thing. Yeah.
Now we'll do the thing and the other thing. Yay. Are we good now?
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. So yes, that's why I have the habitability picture up there, not necessarily for habitability, but really for that zone of communication that we are looking for as we're trying to work with our learners. So as previously just went through, we have many people that have worked on the project, Daniela Scalise being the innovator and trailblazer there, to create a product that really, I haven't seen anywhere else, specifically in that takes learning of a subject such as complex as astrobiology, and then takes it to how students can learn through those processes. We've certainly have things that are specific to life science and something for physical science, something for and those types of things. We have that, but not for astrobiology, and so. All of our team members here, and just thanks to all the people that took a look and helped us with technology and to make this all happen and communicate it out. So one of the reasons why I got involved in this in the first place, other than it's so exciting to me, and of course it is to you because you live and breathe the work that's being done, it's also really interesting to everyone. And so students who are may not know yet about what they want to do in the future, this isn't really about that so much. It's just saying, I'm really excited and interested in what's out there, what's happening on Mars. How is it possible that there is a moon in our solar system that has water underneath an ice crust? That's amazing. And so whenever we have something, anything that students are excited about, we want to grab into that and really think in what can we teach with this. So we, I think as teachers, we see this as such an amazing opportunity in various areas of learning, not at all just into the area of just science or just to an astrobiology class, I mentioned that I did teach an astrobiology class, but I also use this work in all courses, and I encourage all teachers to use the content in astrobiology for creative writing and many other things. I would also just going to make a mention at this moment that the term astrobiology makes so much sense to all of us that are here. It is easy. We know that easily. However, in the general community and with students and other teachers, that term astrobiology is pretty inaccessible. It feels like a course that they never took, so I don't know how to do it. This seems too high. I've talked to colleagues who clearly understand many of all the work that's being done and are interested in it, but they hear the term and get kind of, I don't know what that means. So if we use the phrasing like Graham was saying, search for life in the universe, or something similar, that feels really accessible to most students. So just something to keep in mind as we are doing the learning progressions and trying to, reach everybody, that term doesn't really have a lot of meaning for people that are in the school system or, students in general. But we have other options. It's also really, like I said, it's so good for teachers because we are excited to not only learn the material and understand it because it's so relevant, but also because we're going to leverage anything we can to get the best out of our students. And so the fact that astrobiology is already interdisciplinary is really helpful for a science teacher who, like myself, who might be in a field, maybe I have a course that's labeled earth science or is labeled biology or physics. However, I want to either bring in some really interesting new ideas that would then help them learn that content in the specific field, or I might actually want to check for understanding to see that the students that have learned photosynthesis in the past can actually do it in a novel problem. Can they understand and apply this idea in this new scenario with maybe a planet a different distance away from a star? The star is a different size or intensity, and then it pushes the student to really explain and use the concepts that they had previously learned in a new way, and that really helps everyone be able to really understand that at a deeper level. I also am a huge proponent of using this across curriculum. So if you want to students can have difficulty just if they aren't excited or interested in the topic. So if it's like today's assignment is we're going to do a creative writing option, if you can give them the context of an astrobiology scenario, you're going to get a lot of input and a lot of energy from our students. So if this teacher is working or in engineering or technology, it's such an engaging and relevant and timely and changing thing that we're able to hopefully get the most out of our students. So we're going to leverage that as much as we can. And I'm going to use these terms teachers and scientists throughout the presentation. Those are not meant to be exclusionary. They're meant to just, as we've done the astrobiology learning progressions, there are kind of two sides of how you would use that. And so we're just using those terms to say that scientists are people that have maybe come from a science background. That's how their minds generally work. And then an educator, a teacher might be somebody who has that background, and that's where they're going. Certainly, everyone here can do both roles very well, but that's the thought process on the learning progressions. So again, yes, like was said earlier, the learning progressions were created as a team to do a few different things in one product. That being that it can support teachers or other educators in formal or informal situations to really teach those fundamental science concepts, but also can help scientists who may be working with different school-age children or adults of different background of understanding to be able to make accessible to them the information that they have, so they can really bridge that communication. And of course, this can also include not just activities or talks or so on, which that would be helpful for, but it can also maybe inform products that you're creating, books or social media content, or activities that you are, or lessons that you're creating. So if you'd like to join with on this, you can kind of do both things. I'm sure you can listen and also check out the website if that's something you'd like to do. There's a QR code if you want to use your phone to jump right into that. And I believe it's also in the chat. So either way, and you can just join along, or if it's preferred for you to just listen, that's okay. We'll have this at the end as well. So let's get into more of what the product is and the Astrobiology Learning Progressions and how it's kind of where it came from, how it's set up, and then we'll get into, again, how you can use it. So the core learning questions are 7 questions that we are taking as best as we could, the breadth and depth of all of astrobiology that's accessible and reasonable for K-12 students, and try to bring it to 7 questions. Using that question format made a lot of sense because that is how scientists do their work. And it's also what the questions that maybe teachers and students would be grappling with as well. And each of these are then broken down into sub-learning questions, depending from anywhere from 2 to 5 per core learning question. And what you're seeing here on the screen is just a snapshot of the website, and all of the core learning questions there in black, and then all of the sub-questions are the hyperlinks that are going to take us to the different pages. Now, as a scientist, you are likely going to zoom right into the section that your work is in. And also, we want to acknowledge that there's a lot of overlap generally in astrobiology. So we're going to see maybe your work in different places. But also, as you are science communicators and educators, you also may be asked to do other kinds of, not just your own work, but other topics within astrobiology. So you'll have hopefully everything that is here for you to be able to prepare for those. So this would be the first. If you clicked on one of the sub questions, you'd come to a page that looks like this without the numbers that are on there. And on here, we're going to see that each page is going to look similar to this. It's going to look, the basic skeleton of each page looks like this. In the very small and white is the core learning question, and then in the kind of more prominent there is the sub question that you just clicked on. In this, then we can see that there are navigating the grade bands. So we haven't talked about what that means yet, but the idea of learning progressions, meaning that we are taking, as a student is going through their learning process through school, that they would be learning more and more in depth, more content, more specificity. And so we have set it up to acknowledge all of those pieces, depending on maybe where you might be doing your communication work. So we'll look at that a little bit further in depth. The storyline is the content of, are we really made of star stuff, as our example here, is the content of that in the context or through the lens of K1-2. K1-2, they may know things like star. They may know things that, there's a lot of stuff that they're in process of learning, but as we click through the different grade bands, we're going to see that storyline become more complex and more specific. The NGSS connections for teachers. This is a tab, and so you click on this other tab. On that tab, teachers are going to need to hit certain standards throughout the year, and so NGSS standards for the teachers can be helpful. It may not be something you might use, but as you're communicating with other educators, we'll take a look at that in more in depth as well. The concept boundaries for scientists will be on each page as well, and this will be definitely something that we are hoping that you are using, and we're going to look at that more closely. And then the resources. So these are learning resources that are adapted to specifically this, or at least attached to this idea of that's in the sub-learning question. And it might be activities or lessons, labs, any sorts of different resources that could be there. And they are sorted by the topic and the grade band. And some of the pages also have storyline extensions. So we all know, and probably many that are here, we're able to understand the work that's being done up through middle school and high school. But also, you might be able to push that a little bit more for many students, but maybe not all. And so there are some times where there's a storyline extension. It's not related to the page number or the band number. It's related beyond high school, is the thought there. So as we navigate these bands of the K2, we also note that it's also an adult naive learner. We've kind of also tried to build that in as well. K5 or 3-5, middle school for 6-8, and high school 9-12. The reason why the bands are so helpful is that you're going to see that storyline progress as more content and understanding builds. So as a teacher, you might be working with an educator, they'll be able to zoom right into, because they are a 7th grade teacher, they'll zoom right to the 6-8 band. They'll be able to find the science that they need. They'll be able to find the standards that they need. But as a scientist, what are you doing? You, of course, maybe know who you're targeting and for what certain student group you might be working with. And what would be helpful for you, I really think, is during the storyline, is to see above and below that storyline. So above being like, if you're working with a 7th grade class, you might check out everything that's on the 7th grade 6-8 page. But also take a look at 3-5. That should give you a really good sense of what they may likely feel very comfortable with and know. And in the 9-12, as you go kind of a bit higher, you can see like, oh, that's where we're headed, obviously, but they're not there yet. And so it helps you find that lane of best being able to communicate with the students that you're working with or the people that you're working with. So if we take an example here, we'll take the scientist is taking a look at doing a presentation with a 4th grade class about extremophiles. They would certainly be able to find the sub-learning question that makes the most sense. And then they would, again, be able to read the storyline. Again, this is in the context of the 3-5 learner or the adult emerging learner. And so this is not instructing you on anything about extremophiles. You are an expert at that. What it does give you is a sense of what they know and are learning at this level, and what they, if you go down a little bit, would feel comfortable already knowing, and on the 6-8, what they don't know quite yet. To give an example outside of science, this would be the same thing as in K2, you are looking at letters and words, you're starting to read. In 3rd through 5th grade, you might start to write paragraphs if you're doing writing. In essays in middle school, and then in high school, you might start doing essays that do analysis and argumentative, and you're doing different styles of writing. And so as a scientist, as you're thinking about astrobiology, take it into that kind of context, that there are some things that students are not quite ready to learn. And you can't, and we can't, just have them hurry up and learn it so that we can talk about it at that level. That's actually a pretty dangerous thing to do, because students will not without enough context and not just information, but context, and then also what's the level of understanding that they can handle at that particular age, that they will make connections that are not correct, and they will really, really believe it, and they will hold on to it because that scientist came in and they said that. And so it can be really tricky to, it can be really tempting to say something like, if you were talking about essays or writing, well, an essay is just a lot of paragraphs. That is actually not really true, but if you could try to kind of maybe see my connection there of saying, you can't just tell somebody to hurry up and learn atoms so that you can talk about them. Instead, let's talk to them in terms that they can connect with. And if they're not at the point where they're ready to talk about atoms or waves or whatever that might be, let's use some other phrasing like stuff or matter rather than atoms. That's still okay. And I want to just say that it's completely encouraged to do that. I know as scientists, there is a want or desire to be very specific in the words. If you mean atom, you want to say atom. But sometimes it's okay to just say stuff or small things. If that helps the student be able to really understand the information that you're trying to get to them without kind of getting into that danger zone of misunderstanding. So the concept boundaries for scientists are going to help you with that. So it's broken down into two main categories. We got the big ideas that are there. And these are the things that at this age, these are the big ideas that connect to that or that sub question. And that those are in their standards. This is very comfortable and appropriate for their age level or learning level. And that's really where we want to get to. So if we really don't get beyond that, because we're in the 3-5 for this example, that's okay. We're here and they've learned this and that's great. The boundaries hopefully will help you with how are you going to come up with some examples, So examples in this case, we can see, maybe you can see, the environment includes normally tall plants, and we're going to see that it's also referencing maybe a pet dog. So these are all topics these are all organisms that are things that they are familiar with. Notice that there's none here that are microorganisms. And of course, if you want to talk about extremophiles, you really want to talk about microorganisms. And you can, to some extent. You might say that there are also some small things that are very, very small things that you can't even see. But that's about the boundary of what you can do. And instead, using examples that are accessible to the students at that particular level. This is what's going to help guide you. Again, this would be a great place to then go higher or lower on the grade bands, to then take a look at where are they, what have they comfortably understood before, and where is too high for a typical learner. We all have, this is obviously going to be our average or likely scenarios. In each of the different pages as well, there's a tab for the resources. And so these are all listed by grade level of what seems appropriate or what could be changed, tweaked a little bit if it could be. And then it also has a link to be able to get to those in case it is that you're working with an informal or formal setting where you want to do a lab or a project or a lesson along with maybe your talk or whatever. That is something that's there for you to check out. So I really hope that we also encourage our teachers to use the Astrobiology Learning Progressions as well. It is intended to help them be supported by information that is correct, relevant, and that they can then teach to. Since they, I don't know if there's very many, except for maybe me, it feels like sometimes, that are teachers that are in the field that have taken an astrobiology course. That seems pretty small amount. And that's not the people that we are targeting. We want to target and hopefully support with this product all teachers, K through 12, in virtually any their courses that they want to work on. And so to do that, we want to give them enough information here in that storyline. They'll be able to bounce up and probably higher as they want to know where we're headed. They'll also have the NGSS connections for teachers. That's the next generation science standards. These are, just so you know, these are not going to apply to every state in the United States, but there's many that have adopted these standards. And since teachers do need to make sure that we hit those standards, then we are saying that in the work that's the resources, the topic, all of those things, that is the standards that are listed there are going to be the ones that likely, if you did the projects and so on, you would be able to hit. And that's really helpful and quick information for teachers that don't have a lot of time to do the research that they need to. I'm not sure how aware, the trends are that you've seen in education, but in public schools, what's happening now is that we are not adopting books as curriculum. There are most of the schools and teachers I'm talking to do not have those anymore. And instead, we create the curriculum on our own. And so this is something that is really difficult and takes a lot of time. And so if we can save them time, that is a support for them. And also, of course, the resources are there so they can be able to quickly find that, since we've kind of spent the time to make sure that those things are there. In case it's interesting, they are there's different sections of the NGSS, and so we do within the learning progressions talk about the cross-cutting concepts and the disciplinary core concepts. Those are the kind of content areas content areas that are being hit within the topic. And although we did not include the ones that are the science and engineering practices, because you can really hit any science and engineering practice with any of these sub questions. So we didn't list them because it would be all of them. That's why it's such a good topic for students to be able to engage with. So as I kind of taking a look, and we've kind of gone through that, you're probably on your device playing around with it as well. I just want to pause and then see if the different team members could share more of their experiences. Mine are from the educator point of view, but Hillary, Michelle, Graham, you guys are certainly more from the science perspective or the science lane. And so if you guys would do so, I'd love to hear some examples from you. Not everybody wants.
Well, Michelle, you started to talk about the astrobiology that you were doing with the astrobiologist, the astronaut, about what you were doing. Can you say a little bit more?
Yes, sorry, I was trying to unmute. I've got like a dozen screens. I am here. Hang on, I'm doing my camera now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think, am I here?
In the meantime, Dani, there's a question in the chat about, are there quizzes that go with these sections just to engage students more? That's a great. So
there is in many of the resources. So the resources are specific to have a particular lesson, or they might actually be even a chapter or a unit. So there are a variety of different types of resources, and many of them do have a pre and post test. I would not say all of them do. Sorry, go ahead, Michelle.
All right. Yes. So as I mentioned, we get astronaut ask for, and I do this demonstrations, which are like 3 to 5 minute videos that astronauts film on station. And so they have a lot of different backgrounds that they bring to the table that they want to cover, and they're excited to connect with students, but don't always know exactly how. For things like, I don't know, biology, those are more straightforward, or we get a lot of physics asked. They want to talk about different engineering principles. Obviously Newton's laws is at play and things of that nature. But we did just get an ask about astrobiology, and this astronaut has a really strong background in astrobiology, and is like, I would love to connect that with K-12 students, but just kind of how, what does that look like? And then of course on our team's concern is we are doing standards aligned things. So it's not just, oh, this is something fun and interesting. It's how does this tie into curriculum in a way that is useful to teachers and interesting for students, but still driving that curriculum forward. And so enter the Astrobiology Learning Principle. Entered the ALPs. And so with those, I was able to go through and go, okay, her background is in hydrothermal vents. Okay, here, where exactly are we tying in, and how does this plug in? And there's a number of questions. And so I actually walked through with my team with these on how, and they're like, oh, well, this, and I got it, and come to find out people have been getting different asks for different topics that are related, like astrobiology, and didn't really know how it's connected to that curriculum. So that is how those look on that. On the other side, we also have a new tool at NASA called NASA Engages, and it is a way to connect basically NASA scientists and people and work, that's happening with the public. If you're familiar with the Speakers Bureau, that was kind of the previous system that we had, where you could go in and request a teacher or request a speaker. And now we're wanting to actually do a little bit more in terms of empowering those speakers that are going out and not just saying, hey, go talk on this random topic, but to give them tools. And in developing some of those tools, we looked at things like the ALPs, and we looked at, okay, here, if there's a speaker that's coming in and they're asked to talk about, this, a topic that is relevant to astrobiology, here's how they can do that. Here's that kind of structure. And so scientists have been really excited to see how, like, it's already done. They don't have to figure out and guess, like, oh, how does this connect? What are students learning? All of those things. It's really already to go. I have actually been lobbying to have this in other topics. Like, it's so needed even in like biomedical science. We have an astronaut that has a big ask for that. They want to do a lot of biomedical science related things. And it's not always just like a direct, it's not so easy to see those lines of connection, but the ALPs make it really easy to go in and like look and see, like, oh, who knew this is what they're covering? This is how it relates. Here's some resources to use to engage that.
Michelle, that is fabulous to hear. I'm really pleased to hear that you're using the ALP in that way. And I would love to connect with you further on any other media products or examples you have on usage of the ALP. We at the Astrobiology program would love to know about that and have,
Awesome.
Press releases or like clips or anything are released on that. We would love to have that. So let's connect.
Yeah. And it's so good timing because, we get topics, we have the crew tag ups all the time. And this one just was like astrobiology. And I was like, yes, we got that covered. So we've been knee deep in the ALPs with my team, like digging through and pulling out those connections. And now it's like, how do we fit all this in a 3 to 5 minute video for her?
I would love to chat with you further about that. Excellent.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Graham, you're up.
Yeah, I've dropped a lot of comments in the chat that people can see. One thing I want to point out before I speak to my own experiences, Savannah Seidel, I think I'm pronouncing that right, had a question about the interface and adding an option to go from section to section within one of the ALP topics. And Anthony said that's a possible thing we could do. We were trying to reduce clutter. We didn't want too much extra like bells and whistles. That would be kind of interesting. Because currently you have to go back to the table of contents before you can go to another. And so it might be worthwhile to have just an advancement and like a back button somewhere to go to the different features. So if people are interested, just scroll up in the chat and you'll see Savannah's comment. Anthony said, just give us some thumbs up on that comment and we can consider it as a team. Also, as I've mentioned in the chat, two really important things for me. One, when I came into this, one thing I really love that the team had worked on and put a lot of thought and time into wasn't just, like the different grade levels that we have in the U.S. education system, because these are like rough kind of ideas of where a young student in their learning might be in the general education format. And so the NGSS is, trying to fit into the modern curricula and structure is important. But I also really love that we have like the levels of possible adult learners or maybe just other learners in general of various levels who might want to access this material. For myself, when I share the ALPs, I'm usually sharing them with people from around the world who have questions about how to become an astrobiologist, how to get involved in astrobiology, how do I do these things? And, I spend a couple of hours, sometimes up to 10 hours a week answering questions from people from around the world who have these questions. And so having this kind of structure where it speaks to our education system, but also to more general learners, I think is really crucial in kind of making it more accessible globally as well as for the American education classroom. And I'll also say for myself, I when I came in to add content and really think through how we were presenting the science, I found it really helpful for myself to kind of speak these things out loud as though I was speaking to, a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 17-year-old to kind of have a sense of how someone of that age might receive the different like level of text we were having. There might be some places where we maybe missed the mark a little bit. Maybe it's too advanced or too simple. But we tried our best to kind of, I think, have a more general level in these various structures we have for the different grades and different levels of adult learners, to have the language really explain what we're thinking in astrobiology from the actual research, really based on where the science is right now, but also hopefully to help young learners and adult learners who are following these progressions to to ask their own questions that then lead them forward to learn more themselves. And so, it's been great being part of this. And I hope others who are checking it out now and maybe want to share it with your own audiences, your own classrooms, maybe share it with your teacher friends and families. That'd be super helpful in knowing how it's being received. From my end, I don't hear as much on how it's being received in classrooms. And so I'd love to hear more of that myself.
Yeah,
And
thank you. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I was going to just talk about the poll where we actually are going to poll you all to get some numbers around that question of how many of you plan to use this resource. But Hillary, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, this was an amazing moment. Many of you have been to the National Science Teachers Association meeting, and I was presenting on the learning progressions, and you know how they assign you the time slot, and it usually runs maybe Wednesday or Thursday through Sunday. So Sunday's the last day, and we got an 8:00 a.m. slot, which is, I think, the worst because it's after Saturday night playing. And so, but we had 80 people who came. 80. I've never seen that at an 8:00 session. And we gave them the progressions and on paper and asked them to think about how they would apply it to whatever they were teaching. And everybody did it. They went away with their own plan. And it was really amazing. So I would encourage you to talk to your colleagues who are in other disciplines and introduce them to this, because it is so cool, like Dani's been saying. So, Dani, did you have some more slides? I think you did, right?
I do, just a couple more.
Okay.
And I'll have this poll open for a few more moments. So if everyone could please give us a sense of how likely you are to use this resource and how useful this was for you to be introduced to it. We'd love to know for evaluation purposes so the Guild can continue to bring opportunities like this to you.
So sorry for the scrolling. I was trying to get to the poll. I will do that later. So yes, I just wanted to mention, of course, Aaron and all of his work, and then talking about kind of the big takeaways. There's that QR code in case you haven't been there, but I'm sure you've gotten to the website so far. Your work with our students and emerging learners is incredibly important. It's exciting, and it's the thing when, always consider this, whenever families ask their kids when they come home or are completed with school, what'd you do today? This will be the thing that they talk about. I had a scientist. I had an astronaut. There was somebody I watched this. This person came to our class, or they Zoomed in. This is the work that you do with our K-12 students is incredibly important and exciting. And it's the things, they don't come home and they don't say, oh, I did this worksheet today. They say, that's when students say, nothing, I didn't do anything today. Of course they did. But these are the things, these moments with kids and emerging learners are what is most interesting. I just, I don't know if you would have this perspective, because you typically, the people that are here, I don't think have a classroom. But students, I haven't mentioned this, but if students who have a guest speaker or have something, if they don't understand something, they'll just be usually will be quite quiet. They they want to be really respectful to you. I've had it in my classroom. I had a guest speaker. This was prior to ALPs and me even knowing this was happening. And he just was so upset because he's like, these kids aren't asking questions. They're not doing anything. Well, the content was too high. They didn't know what to do, and they didn't know how to ask a question. And so they just got really quiet. And so when we think of kids now, younger kids typically will ask more questions. That's a general question, an idea. But if they don't ask questions, it doesn't necessarily mean they understand. And that's just something to, maybe that's a moment to ask some more questions of your own. Hey, tell me, do you really understand photosynthesis, or is that a new idea? That will help re-engage them back into that work. And all the prep work that you're doing today, and then of just learning what's available, is a huge part of all the things that you'll really ever need to do. In the future, it'll be something that's probably quite a small amount of work while you jump back over to the ALPs before making your YouTube video or your presentation or your slides. And so doing all the work that you're doing right now, we all really appreciate, because this is the work. And then beyond this won't be very much. And then we also are going to have, as you know, another time to go through this. And what we're going to do different in this interactive workshop on the 23rd is we want you to bring your ideas. You can bring anything you're working on or that you're considering. So any sort of communication or educational opportunity that maybe you've done in the past and you want to try it again by looking at the ALPs, or something that's brand new. You have this idea, you've been asked to speak somewhere, or whatever that case may be, and you just have a whiff of an idea. You don't have to have everything prepped to come into that session on the 23rd. You can have everything from it's done and I want to share it. Maybe you had an opportunity between now and the 23rd to try the ALPs with some sort of interaction. We would love on the 23rd that you come back and explain, just talk about that and share that with everybody else in the group. Just today, hearing that there's looking for other ways to make it even more accessible for you guys. We're interested in that. This is really a good thing for all of us. So when you come to our session in July, please bring either things that you've already done that you want to improve, things that you're working on right now, or anything that you just have a hint of an idea that you might want to start working on. That is that communication or educational piece. And when you come into that session, we're going to have lots of options and possibilities to come away with, hopefully close to or a completed project plan. So thank you so much for letting me present. It's been really an honor. I know it sounds kind of overused phrase, but it really truly feels that way. And being a part of this team has been one of the best things. So thank you so much. Let's talk about some questions if you have some.
Please.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to.
And Dani, thank you so much for being here and presenting this clearly useful and clearly appreciated resource, because this is one of our most attended guild meetings, I'm happy to say. And so this resource is very slowly but surely gaining attention and gaining support. So I'm happy to see that it's growing. Yes, let's take some questions. We have a few minutes.
And if you would like, you could put them in the chat, or if you would prefer to speak, I'm sure we can manage that as well with the mic.
Oh, good. I'm seeing the excitement for folks to use this resource. And again, you have homework, so please see if you can use this with your learners, your kids, even maybe as a practice. I know I have young kids who might appreciate some of these. I have an incoming kindergartner, so maybe she'll appreciate the early learner portion of this. Please come with your thoughts and feedback and see how you can use this between now and part 2 on July 23rd. And keep in mind, part 2 of this workshop will be at the same time using the same link on July 23rd. I will resend an email to everyone who registered for this meeting. Hopefully you all received my email with all the details for today's meeting. Graham, that's so cool. I see that you're going to try to use this resource with your learners. And I know I definitely have a couple of homework assignments coming out of this meeting to follow up with some of you on some of the suggestions on integrating the option, like Savannah suggested, integrating the option to go back. And Michelle, I will definitely follow up with you about, I'd like to talk to you more about NASA Engages, and also hearing how you've been using this resource with your astronauts.
And if you're thinking of somebody in your life who you think would benefit from this, they don't have to have come today. So if you just give them the link and have them check it out and let them know they're welcome too. So just have them register.
Yes. And if you are not, I will just close by saying, if you're not a member of the Guild, or if you just have joined for this meeting, please send me an email, because I will have to manually add you to the listserv and take a few extra steps to discuss with you before we actually get you formally into the Guild. So please contact me and we can take it from there.